Welcome to the British weather and the very British MGB. But get out of the rain, come on, join me inside, I'll tell you about it. And welcome to the inside of the MGB, the MGA replacement. This thing came in the 60s and it was more of a refined car than the old MGA. It still did 100 miles an hour odd, but it had a larger engine, 1.8 versus the old 1.6. It gave it a lot more torque, not a massive amount of more power, but it suits the whole remit of this car. It's got a big boot, it's got space behind the seats for your oddments, and it's reasonably comfortable. You do sit a bit high, and that maybe does suggest the fact that it's not really an out-and-out sports car. We have overdrive, for example, nice things like reading lights, and even a quartz clock. Now we have that because this is a later so-called rubber bumper MGB, the kind of ones that came in 1974, thanks to legislation in the US. Safety legislation there required that they have 5-mile-an-hour impact bumpers, so we had to as well. Because of stuff in the factory, they couldn't afford to make two different types. People say that they look pretty awful, but I think they're starting to age quite well. There's a certain vintage to this whole era of British Leyland, and don't forget, in that era we got all sorts of brilliant paint and interior trim options, so there's an appeal there. But of course, regardless of what this car is about, how does it drive? Well, this motor liter wheel is inviting me, so let's go for a drive. The first thing you notice with this car as soon as you drive is how easy it is, apart from the steering, which is rather heavy. But the rest of it, really easy. Lovely slick gear change for the most part. Of course there's overdrive as well, and the engine's so torquey that it almost doesn't matter what gear you're in, it just chugs away. It's relatively smooth too, as long as you don't rev it over 4,000. What's more is that it's civilized. It rides really, really smoothly. In fact, it's understandable because it's got softer springs than the MGA. Wow, it's raining. I'm having to use my second wiper speed here. But the most perhaps significant thing over the MGA is that it has a unibody construction, and it fitted with strategically placed box sections and cross members, and it provides a tremendously rigid body that reduces scuttle shake no end. But the only noises that you can hear at the moment is the rain and a little bit of buffeting from the roof, but it's fairly decent. Instruments are all fairly visible, and backlit buttons and dials. It all feels relatively modern, you know, for 70s and 80s, certainly. There's another advantage with getting a late model MGB, and that's price. Now, at the moment, all MGBs are pretty expensive. If you want to buy a nice one, you should really have a good 10 grand. The reality is that today's classic scene, much of it was built on the MGB. There's a huge enthusiasts following, and there's loads of clubs out there, loads of events to go to, and if you want to modify your MGB or restore it, respray it, or whatever you want to do, whatever you need to do, it's pretty easy. Well, it's certainly available, and there are people out there who have done pretty much everything, so you're not going to be the first. All in all then, if you're looking for a fairly sporty, open-top tourer, it really is difficult to beat the MGB.